There's a place He comes to me. Though I'm blind, He helps me see. Though I see dimly in this place, one day I'll see Him face to face.
This is Kurt Kaikkonen, pastor of Calvary Chapel, Waterford, at your neighborhood church. Today on Face to Face, we'll be in the book of Matthew. So grab your Bibles and let's get started. If you want to hear this complete message in its entirety, go to yourneighborhoodchurch.com, where you can download Your Neighborhood Church app at the App Store. And so you're staying up all night and you're bragging about all your past stories and all your soldier stuff as you're sitting around the campfire. And so it's kind of like they're out there telling their ghost stories. And now you've made it through the whole night until very early morning. And then, boom, big bright angel alert. And it had to scare the bejeebas out of all these guys. All these guys, they're going to have to go change their robes now because they're all shaking like crazy. And all of them fell down like dead men. And now they're all passed out because of this fear, because of the appearance of this angel. And at the same time, you have these two Marys coming, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary, because they started out really early and they have their baskets with them because they have big plans for their day. Because all they've been thinking about since Friday night is to get there at their very first opportunity to do something for Jesus, to do something for his burial. Because they were out there and they were watching and they had observed Joseph and Nicodemus and they had saw them prepare the body, so they know what still needs to be done. And so they brought these spices because they're going to continue what Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus began. And so they not only knew what they needed, but they probably wanted to go out there and give him a proper burial, to make this a lovely memorial, something you would do for someone you deeply loved, because they didn't expect a resurrection. They expected to see Jesus's dead body there. And so they're all wondering, well, how are we going to remove the stone? Because everyone, all the disciples, they knew Jesus died and they knew Jesus was dead. Nobody believed that he was going to rise from the dead. And so those Marys, they felt that great earthquake, but it wasn't the earthquake that moved the stone. The angel moved the stone. It says he rolled it away. And in Luke's gospel, it'll talk about that there were two angels, but Matthew here, he's only talking about the one angel. But that angel, he didn't just come to remove the stone from the tomb. He came there to bring a message. And that's what the word angel means. It means messenger. And so this angel, he had one message for the Roman soldiers, which was, get out of here. But then he had a different message for the ladies. And if you notice, the angel never said anything to the soldiers. He didn't wave around a sword. And so I'm going to guess that the angels, he just kind of had to just give them the look. But then the same angel that terrified these soldiers, he says to the girls, he says, hey, you don't have to be afraid. Come over here and see. Because he didn't roll away the stone to let Jesus out of the tomb. Jesus was already gone. He rolled away the stone to show these women that Jesus was missing, that he wasn't there anymore. Now, up until this time, and everyone who had died and had been raised from the dead, they were raised in the exact same body that they had died in. But here we see it was Jesus's body that was missing, and that it was his actual body that was raised. That body's, it's not there anymore. So this is not just a spiritual resurrection. This is a physical resurrection, but his body has been changed. It's been glorified. And I believe this is the same exact thing that'll happen to our bodies when we're raised, or how we'll be changed at the rapture. And I think it's very important to note that it was his actual body that was raised, that this is not just a spiritual resurrection. His body wasn't still just lying there in the grave. And when the women, when they went into the tomb and they saw the grave closed, they saw those clothes wrapped like a mummy still, undisturbed. And the reason we know that is because Peter and John, that very same day, they're going to go to the tomb later, and that's what they describe of what they saw. And so Jesus, what he had done is he just passed through them without unwrapping them. And it's the same way that Jesus just passed through the stone door before the angels came. And from now on, when we see Jesus, we'll see Jesus walk through doors. We'll see Jesus fly through the sky and then just suddenly appear like he's being teleported, like in Star Trek, and all these great things that you can do in a glorified body. And we'll be getting these glorified bodies. And so I think when the angel, when he was talking to these girls, it was like a whole different angel than the one that the soldiers saw. I imagine he spoke to them in the sweetest tones, and he's just sitting on top of that rock, and he's grinning from ear to ear and maybe swinging his feet back and forth on top of that rock. And he gives the Marys their message. Don't be afraid. I know you're looking for Jesus. He's not here. He's risen. Go look where he laid and see quickly, and go tell his disciple he's risen from the dead, and that he's going before you into Galilee, and there you will see him. And so they heard what the angel said, and then they went in that tomb, and then they saw it with their very own eyes, and they saw that it was true. And then it says that they left there, and they had fear and great joy, which means even if you have great fear, you can still have great joy. But even after these women had seen the angel, we know that from John's gospel that Mary Magdalene, she was still grieving really deeply over Jesus's body being missing. And so the Gospel of John, it records Mary Magdalene's story of Jesus appearing to her personally. But here in this gospel, we're told that Jesus appears to these two women, and the thing is, he does this first. He does this before he ever appears to anyone else. And I believe it's because although they have great joy from the angel, they're still afraid and they're still doubting. And Jesus, he doesn't want them to be afraid anymore. So he goes and he personally tells them the same thing that the angels had just told him, to go to his brothers, that he will meet them up in Galilee. And if you notice, Jesus doesn't call them his disciples anymore. Now he's calling these disciples brothers, because through the cross, they've now been adopted by God the Father as adopted sons of God. And I think another reason why Jesus appeared to these women personally, and not just having them take back the message from just the angel, is that Jesus wants these women to be so sure about his resurrection so that they're able to be bold, because the disciples, they're not going to believe them. They're going to dismiss them. And the reason that they're going to dismiss them is because they're women. And here, by having these first witnesses of Jesus' resurrection being women, that gives more credence that this account, that it just couldn't be a made-up story. Because if this was propaganda, and if this was just a made-up story, and someone just was writing this story, the messengers would have been men. So if someone was writing from the first century, writing this story, nobody would have ever made it a woman, because a woman's testimony back then was not highly looked at in the first century. Women, they couldn't even testify in a court as a witness. And so now you have these two Marys, they're running to the disciples, and you have these Roman soldiers who were guarding the tomb, but they're not running to Pilate, to their boss. No, they're not running to their superior officers. But who they're running to is they're running to the priest. Because if they ran to Pilate, Pilate would have killed them because it was his seal on that tomb, and that seal had been broken. And so now these guys, they're facing the death penalties. So these soldiers, they're in a desperate situation. So now when the religious leaders, when they hear their report, and all these chief priests now and all these religious leaders, they're all alarmed. And so between these two parties, the chief priests and the Roman soldiers, they get together and they concoct this story that would explain the empty tomb. And so they fabricate their cover-up. And right here, you can see how dark and how evil that Jewish leadership was, the Jewish priests, because they not only knew that Jesus was the Messiah before they condemned him to death, but now here, beyond a shadow of a doubt, where Jesus had been resurrected from the dead. And it's all because of their own actions. So they know it because they're the ones who sealed the tomb and placed the guard over it. And they're still plotting. So it seems that there's nothing that can change these people's wicked hearts. Now, if I were one of them, if I was a chief priest, or if I was a Roman soldier, or if I was Pontius Pilate, I would be scared to death right now. I'd be totally terrified because I'd be looking over my shoulder because I'd be waiting for Jesus to come through the door and show up and to take me out, to get even with me for what I've done. But the story that these guys came up with, it was unbelievable. It's unbelievable to believe that all of them were sleeping, the whole Roman guard. And if they had been sleeping, well, then how did they know that it was the disciples who stole Jesus' body? And would they really risk death by sleeping? By all of them sleeping? But somehow, even through all this, the soldiers, they made out real well because you knew they failed at their job. But the priest said that they would cover it up with Pilate. And it said that they got paid really well. But what they got paid really well for is they got paid well for lying. And they were to spread their story everywhere. And so you can see they even had fake news way back then in their day. And the story that was spread was that the disciples, that they stole the body of Jesus. But that scene, it looked nothing like a grave robber's scene. It was all orderly. Everything was very neat. Everything was folded up and everything was put in its place. There was nothing in that tomb that was disturbed. And the disciples, they would not have unwrapped the body to steal it. They would have taken that body with the grave clothes on it. And the other part of that is that the disciples here, they thought Jesus was dead. They were all hiding. They were afraid for their very lives.
You've been listening to Face to Face. Face to Face on this radio station has been provided by Your Neighborhood Church. If you want to help support Face to Face and put this program on other stations just like yours, you can contact us at yourneighborhoodchurch.com or write Your Neighborhood Church, P.O. Box 500, Romeo, Michigan 48065.
There's a place he comes to me. Though I'm blind, he helps me see. Though I see dimly in this place, one day I'll see him face to face.
Tune in again tomorrow at this same time as we continue to go through the Bible.